The biggest story of 2020, yes, you're correct, it's the coronavirus pandemic and how it's changed pretty much everything in our lives, but a lot of other stories happened this year. It might be hard to remember all of the important news we've covered this year, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some that made a big impact outside of COVID-19. First off, remember the wildfires in Australia? I certainly felt like American society had been burning down all year, but much of an entire country was literally on fire for months, and it was very scary. Here at home, Aussie-owned business KO Pies and Catering raised tens of thousands of dollars by holding a Boston Barbie, adding a little much-needed good news as people in our community helped out. And let's not forget, later in the year, the American West Coast also had its worst wildfire season with 4 million acres burned. The Black Lives Matter movement and other forms of protest quickly spread throughout the nation in May after George Floyd's death, with rallies and demonstrations held across the country, even amid the pandemic. George Floyd was one of the many black people killed by law enforcement this year. Breonna Taylor and Rayshard Brooks are just two others, and calls for justice continue with mixed results. Legal proceedings continue in the deaths of Floyd, Taylor, and Brooks. But more broadly, the outrage over Floyd's death has brought huge focus to systemic racism in our country, and helped make anti-racism a goal for many. There's hope and skepticism that new laws written because of the demonstrations advance the cause of equality across the country. Jeffrey Epstein, the super-rich convicted sex offender who, according to authorities, killed himself in his jail cell last year, was back in the news in July after his close associate Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested in New England. The FBI tracked her down in New Hampshire, and she is now imprisoned on multiple charges related to the sexual abuse of young women and girls by Epstein, though she's pleaded not guilty. Harvey Weinstein was given a 23-year prison sentence in March for rape and sexual assault after many women came forward and exposed the disgraced Hollywood film producer. Speaking of prison sentences, remember the college admissions scandal? Rich folks bribing and cheating to get their kids into certain colleges? Well, that mostly wrapped up this year, with many more pleading guilty for their involvement in the scheme. Operation Varsity Blues exposed corruption in higher education enrollment, and much of the action took place right here in Massachusetts. The biggest names were Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman, who served 11 days in prison last October, and a Full House star Lori Loughlin, who began her 2-month prison sentence this October. Varsity Blues was a movie about football, and that's a good transition into our next top story: Tom Brady leaving the Patriots and signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in March. Patriots fans got another surprise with Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement to join the team in April, taking a break from promoting CBD, but he still had time to donate some PPE to first responders in Massachusetts. So this also happened this year. The Pentagon released a handful of UFO videos in April, but I'm sure conspiracy theorists were too busy pretending the coronavirus doesn't exist to notice. We also had a record-setting hurricane season, a giant explosion in Beirut, and of course Prince Harry and Meghan moving to the United States. A lot of things stealing our attention away from the upcoming alien invasion. You probably forgot about this big story too. A ton of high-profile Twitter accounts like Barack Obama, Bill Gates, and Kim Kardashian were hacked in July as part of a Bitcoin scam. All the turmoil around the election, which as of this taping the president is still contesting, made it easy to forget that he was impeached in Congress last December, but was acquitted by the Senate in February. Only 2 other presidents have been impeached in U.S. history. Finally, we lost many influential figures this year. The world was shook when Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and all other passengers on Bryant's helicopter died when it crashed near LA in January. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was mourned as a champion of social justice and equality, whose renown for fighting sex discrimination was formed in part at 2 less than fulfilling years as a student at Harvard Law School. Her death in October led to a contentious Supreme Court nomination. On top of that, we also lost civil rights icon and Congressman John Lewis, actor Chadwick Boseman, guitarist Eddie Van Halen, actor Naya Rivera, Mythbusters' Grant Imahara, and Jeopardy's Alex Trebek. The coronavirus has dominated the news for a very good reason, but it's good to remember the other important stories that shaped 2020, good and bad, as we move into the new year. Who knows what next year is going to bring, but I'm hoping it's not murder hornets. You remember murder hornets from 2020? Yeah. Really hoping it's not murder hornets.